messenger.
That
They
too.
don't listen.
All right, you guys are. Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome to the August 17th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Let's join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone.
Everyone.
Do we have any public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Gary Olds. I live at 3308 Frontier Circle. This is the first we meet twice in 1 week. I apologize for that. I could have probably covered it on Monday, except the crowd's better here. So I may remember that in the future and come on Thursdays, especially if there's a revolt that I just heard about. I just have a little bit of feedback that I'd like to present to you. I picked up an extra copy of the 2023 budget overview, which is an excellent piece. I think I mentioned last time literature, and I would encourage you to encourage Rich and others to continue to do this. But one thing that I noticed about it, unless I'm reading it wrong, and I am on Social Security, so I couldn't be missing things when I read as I'm getting older and older, is that this does an excellent job of showing the budget and showing the expenditures and the revenues by percentages. But if somebody picks this up, they have no idea what the projected income revenue is dollar-wise for the county. And I think that's important. And I know it's got a lot of information already on it, and there's probably no more room unless you went to a legal size piece of paper to explain to people, because I really think there's a misunderstanding, and I could be totally wrong, but I think a lot of people believe that their property taxes drive the county's revenue. And that's not at all true from what I found out. In fact, you guys spend more in personnel costs than you collect in ad valorem taxes. And I don't think the public realizes that. And I think that's an important piece of information, because it's hard for anybody to get upset about sales tax revenue for you all, because don't go buy something if you don't like the sales tax in Riley County. Don't consume it. But obviously confiscatory property taxes, you don't have a choice, because you all will show them who really owns their property if you don't pay taxes. That's the reality of it. But this, I just want to give you the feedback. I don't know that can fit in for the 2024 that you'll be working on, the Rich staff will be working on. But if there's a way to include what the revenues, and actually they'd be projected revenues, because you really don't know what the revenues are. But I do appreciate all the data, and we'll see you at the R&R. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Yes.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the Reach Committee to present to you who is nominated and selected as our September Employee of the Month. What was given to us for nomination was this person has been absolutely unbelievable as a staff member in charge of overseeing Hot Hall and the fairgrounds, especially during the Riley County Fair. His work ethic, his ability to handle any situation, and his willingness to make sure that many of the logistical details, and there are many, involved with the fair are as well as dozens of events that take place at the fairgrounds are unmatched. We at the Extension Office are very appreciative of his efforts. And above all, John is one really nice guy who is always there to keep things running smoothly. We appreciate John and think a lot of the man. So present John Harkness as September Employee of the Month. Why?
Yeah, I like that.
Good deal, thank you.
And one I get 2 movie tickets and special parking place for a month. You can take a picture with the commissioner.
Got fellow John here too, so I like that.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Looks like you have one more. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations on those tickets. Yeah, now let's take this.
Is there any other public comment from the rest of the group?
Nancy.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, let me guess.
what do you think it is? Like that's the board to add an executive session to my time at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we'll
Please.
make a motion then to add an executive session to the end of the regular business meeting. I'll second.
Didn't Clancy say to your part of the meeting or to the
The
end?
last item is mine.
Oh, there is, okay. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to add an executive session at the end of the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just one, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
one ought to be enough for the last 2 or 3 hours.
Did you let Derek know?
I'm sorry.
Did you let Derek know?
Yeah, sure did. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, then we'll move to commission comments. Commissioner McKeon.
It's a home time, but Tuesday is ailments, but spent a lot of time looking, catching up on some stuff. Going through some comments on our commissioners listserv. There's some commissioners in the other counties don't even understand appraisals. I mean, it's hard for KC because even the commissioners they're posting stuff that isn't true. And so then yesterday I did attend the North Central Juvenile Facility Board meeting. We had a couple of executive sessions to discuss some personnel issues. The rest of the meeting was just reviewing the financials and then also going over some of the DCF policies that they keep imposing on them. Going Martin Westing, but you have to deal with them. That's it.
That's it. Okay, Commissioner Ford.
You ready? Okay. Monday afternoon, we had a quarterly county officials luncheon here in the chambers over the noon hour. It's good to have the opportunity to chat and listen and hear a little bit more depth from the department heads and officials on what they're working on in real time and what some of the challenges, concerns are as everybody's facing. It was a good hour plus, I think, wasn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah, so no, it was good. We had a good conversation. Tuesday afternoon, attended the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meeting. Started off with an update on their financials through the end of July, as well as membership accounts. I think we all heard about that this morning. It's up over 900 now. Talked to her a little bit from what's going to be the incoming president, Jack Wassenberg, for 2024. That'll all happen, I guess, with the leadership retreat. That'll be in January. Let's see. He spent some time also talking about the new nominating committee among the actual topics of discussion during the business side. It's a very robust, I'm going to use that adjective, dialogue on the possibility of Country Stampede returning back to Manhattan in 2024. I would just probably put out there that a lot still has to happen. A lot of T's need to be crossed. A lot of I's need to be dotted. A lot of collaboration is probably going to have to happen, and a lot of logistics will have to be figured out for anything to come to fruition. But they are tracking that at that point in time, and kind of a bad situation over in Shawnee County, just overall. But there's several other Kansas communities involved in that discussion too. So we're not just the only ones. So Mike Matson followed up with a discussion on their federal and state chamber priorities. It was mentioned a little bit in this morning's breakfast, but went into a little bit more dynamics. They'll come back with a local one later on in the year. Did give me an opportunity on the state side to talk a little bit about the LAVTR funds, what that would mean for local units of government, statutorily required by the state. And also got an update from chamber staff and some reminders of some upcoming events that are going on basically really throughout the rest of the year, believe it or not. So Wednesday afternoon, attended the policy board meeting of Flint Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization, got an update on their financials as of August 8th. Also heard some updates on the transportation demand model, an update to safe routes to schools, projects occurring from KDHE. There's discussion of bringing back a Highway 24 corridor committee to work on some things there. And we discussed a little bit about the 22 MPO audit. Also got an update from KDOT. Their update was a little bit more state-based instead of regionally, but they did include some of the regional projects that are in Louisville as well. Some of the action items we voted on was minutes from the May meeting, approval of the 2024 Transportation Improvement Plan, just the public comment side on there and the changes that were made, and an update to the UPWP Amendment 2. And we'll be discussing some plans for a review of Jared Tremblay, planning manager. Believe it or not, he's been at that post for a year now. So that'll be in October or November. I'd like to put some stuff together for that. Had a pretty good long conversation too about the Taylor Road interchange over there off of I-70, just west of Junction City. A lot of conversation going on at that particular location. So pretty much summed everything up there. The chamber breakfast this morning was good. I, for one, like Dr. Stewart's accent. I have absolutely no problems with it. Just put that out there. I thought he gave a good presentation. I really liked his history lesson on things. He hit the nail on that. So I think we're, I know there's some health concerns with President Lincoln at the moment, but I think just over the last year or so, I think we're in good shape moving forward. I think the university had a home run there. So Mike Matson talked a little bit about his position there with the chamber as well, and shook a few hands. I guess there was no babies to kiss, so missed out on that one, but good to go elsewise. So that's all I got this morning.
Okay, well, I had an interesting week. Monday after our meeting, I made some phone calls, dealt with some other issues after or before the county officials meeting. That meeting was well attended. We had some good pizza, had a good discussion, and people were talking, were very open about what's going on in their departments and concerns that they had. So I thought it was a good meeting. We'll have another one next quarter. So then Tuesday morning, I had some house issues. I was awakened by my smoke and carbon monoxide alarm about 2:00 in the morning. So I didn't sleep much the rest of the night. Finally, I disconnected them because I changed the batteries. They still were going off. So opened the windows, went back to sleep for a little while. And Tuesday, I had some meetings at my church and then a personnel meeting in the evening. So I was talking to my daughter and she was freaking out. She said, "You got to call the gas company." So I did. So that ended up another sleepless night. And they said, "You have to call the fire department." The gas company did. So I went through this whole scenario. The police came in, or the fire department came down, screaming down the street with the sirens and everything. This was about 10:30 at night. So, neighbors were out wondering what's the matter. But they came in full gear. I have to give a lot of kudos to the fire department. They checked everything in the house and they determined that one of the fire alarms was defective because it was yelling at me and saying carbon monoxide, and they checked all the carbon monoxide in the house. About that time, then when they were done, then the gas company came and they took another hour checking out the house, all the appliances, started and stopped the furnace, which they unfortunately left on.
No, I just prepared it for Saturday. You're okay.
Oh, yeah. And fortunately, I kind of ignored it. Tried to get some sleep so
Please
I
tell
was
me that's
gonna-
not one of those smart alarms because
well,
I
it
really
is.
question that at this point in time.
Yeah, and one of they highly suggested just getting a carbon monoxide monitor and not a combination.
Oh.
You know, and who knows after 3 years what a fire alarm, what a smoke alarm that they go out.
I just knew you needed a little life in your life.
I guess so.
You know?
Didn't need any sleep.
Getting too much sleep.
Yeah.
It really is a smart alarm.
But anyway, I was impressed with the response and professionalism. I never dreamed of getting into that, but anyway, then Wednesday had some follow-up discussions about the Keats project. Spent most of the afternoon yesterday going through today's meeting and all the documents and paperwork that have gone into it. So but interesting to see how things go. Then this morning I too attended the Good Morning Manhattan breakfast. I thought that Marshall Stewart did a really good job. The history of the land grant colleges, I hadn't really thought about that for a long time and how that developed.
It's a really, really cool
It
story.
really is a good story. And the way they're reaching out to all the 105 counties, I think that's really good and trying to get folks to be involved with.
I forgot his correlation there between being in North Carolina Wolfpack
Oh, yeah.
and North Carolina Tar Heel. I don't quite understand how that becomes a wildcat.
Yeah, the North Carolina accent's really good. But his wasn't too strong.
No.
They had to throw a little Missouri in there too.
And that would also beg the difference that it's everybody else that has the accent. We don't.
Yeah. No, we don't have any accents. So anyway, that's all I have.
Ready for business commissioners?
Mhm.
First item I need a motion to approve highway use permit granting every use permission work in the right of way, replacing existing poles or overhead wire along with Barton Road between Falcon Road and Walnut Creek Road.
That wouldn't have anything to do with the North Station, would it? I didn't think so. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve the highway use permit granting Evergy permission to complete work as outlined in your permit.
I'll second.
So moved and second to approve the highway permit as outlined. All in favor? Aye.
Chair, please. Next, I need a motion to approve the advisory board appointments.
Yes, go and make a motion then to approve the advisory board appointment letters and resolution.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the advisory board appointments and resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three sign, please.
Oh, I missed one.
Getting closer and closer to lobster.
Second.
Black sleep.
Sure. I'm gonna get every ounce of ink out of this pen. That's my goal, yeah. Need a motion to approve the transfer station agreement?
Another question.
Just say this was a product of long negotiations. It was described during the department head meeting. And John and Evan put a lot of work into it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
In the end, it was worth it. It ended up with a fair contract for both parties, I think.
Okay. With that said, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement for operation of the Riley County Transfer Station.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the agreement of the operation of the transfer station. All in favor?
Aye. Just the chair. So
All
spots. Now some of mine.
Okay.
Almost that it was long enough. Thank you.
Some in there for plants of this, I mean, too.
Thought I hit on mine unless I missed one.
Oh, that's double for you if you missed.
But there's a lot for you too. Oh, you're gonna pass.
Oh, I see. No, that's.
No, there was some for you guys. You know.
Oh, okay. That's what you meant.
Congratulations.
What's going on over here, Rich? Yeah, I didn't see those.
Yeah, some that are marked Clancy, but I didn't look at them, so I'm signing. Yeah, some of them I signed, just signed, and then
There's an attachment to contractual provisions attachment. That's probably the one that has all three of you signed. Contract.
Says on the back.
Either one.
of the
Yeah, right
each
here.
agreement, I think each one of those
Each one
has
of them.
that second page.
Wherever.
Making you use the last of this heat.
I hope all these agreements aren't signed.
see, it's looking very bad.
All you need is
sign on.
Yeah, next month.
just start doing all your agreements on a handshake. You can get away to do it.
So I'll sure,
Recently got in trouble over that deal.
grab that.
Lots of work for lawyers there.
I was thinking there was more than two.
Today about handshakes.
That's just job security for you. That's why the reason why you say that.
Yeah. It's true.
Yes. I didn't see anything else, but that doesn't mean it's not there either.
Yeah, there's another one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some second page.
There's one in each of these things.
Probably. Why couldn't it just been a bond document? I'm kidding. Okay, try it again, in reverse, huh? Part of the next agreement, let's work on less signatures, please.
All right. I'll have some documents for you to sign to accomplish that. Problems.
Well, here, while you're waiting.
I don't mind going through it. It wouldn't hurt. Make sure.
Need the board to approve the Riley County employee action forms for Kenzie Beckler, new hire as lead volunteer fire stipend. And then Bailey Cruz, the new hire as gift intern volunteer. Any items for intergovernmental luncheon commissioners?
No, and I was thinking long and hard on that one too. I don't have anything.
Okay, all three attending.
Yeah, it's fun.
Lancy,
Yes, please.
It's the week after.
I think it's the week after. I think it's 28th.
any changes to the minutes, commissioners?
Didn't see them.
I, for some reason, couldn't get in to see the minutes, but that's a whole other issue, so. I'll go with the flow.
In motion,
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the August 14th meeting of the Riley County Commission.
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the August 14th meeting of the Riley County Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
tentative agenda with commissioners. Good. Any items for next week's press conference? Next, you have Mr. Holman up at 9:30. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, commissioners.
This one will be potential.
That's a legitimate question right now.
Oh, are they really? I didn't see anything.
I saw stuff about the last one, but I never see
It just looks like kind of like a I don't know, glorified practice or something to me. I don't know.
What's that?
Throw,
Oh,
throw Israel. Got another guard. Looks like.
Great, commissioners? Yeah.
Good morning, commissioners.
One,
IT Holden, Raleigh County Council. The item before you, got a large packet. It's an agenda report. The results is basically supporting documentation that you received as part of the fence view that you conducted in North Riley County on July 13th of this year. The first of the two you've done so far this year. And the point of today's discussion, as the car indicates, is to have you examine the draft order assigning partition fence responsibility. One of the things you're required to do in the fence view is memorialize your decision in an order, which is only 4 pages of what's in front of you. But you have to do that as a result of the fence view if you're going to assign maintenance responsibility or cost. And really, it's key to remember those two phrases because that's what you're there to do in a fence view. You're not there to deal with outside contractual issues, which often are a possibility. Probably in this one, more so than any that you will be involved in the future, potentially. I'm not trying to jinx you. I don't believe in jinxes, but it was pretty clear, as the car indicates, and as you know, that the parties, the adjoining landowners here, have a number of potential contractual issues between themselves. You do not have authority to resolve any of that. That is not part of what a fence view is. So you did have the opportunity to hear from each of the adjoining landowners. You provided that. Each one of them made their points to you. A good share of the packet is information provided by the adjoining landowner to the applicant. That the lion's share of that packet with the photographs and that kind of thing came from the adjoining landowner. Just so you know context. And that's really the bottom line. And that's why I wanted to walk through the draft order here. I will tell you, there are a couple things I know I need to add. And for that reason, it's always best, I think, particularly one that has a bunch of different side issues in it, to give you a chance to look at a draft. And then if there's anything that you want changed, we can do it. If there's anything you want added, we can do it. And I will probably, my intent is I'll come back to you with this final version of this probably next Thursday. By the time I make the necessary tweaks, have time to get it on the agenda. So you'll see it again, but it'll be ready for your approval a week from today as part of the business meeting. That's the plan. With nothing else intervening. So first of all, just the easy part is the first page. It simply identifies in those 3 different whereas clauses going on to page 2, the context of where you were and what you were there to do, the legal description of the properties. You have to have legal descriptions in an order because otherwise the register of deeds cannot file it. Also attached, I will tell you, to the car are the applications of both the applicant, and there was one fence there that you viewed. I mean, you saw another one. You saw one across the way, and it was submitted on paperwork that would suggest it was an actual fence view. But the parties were told that we were there to look at that, the applicant's fence, because the other document from the adjoining landowner that came in the day before the fence view. And in the right circumstances, that would have given you the ability to take time to examine the other one. But I just want to tell you that wasn't done. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, because I made it clear to both parties, we were there to do the application of the person who had submitted it. And that fence, what is described in the body of this, after it goes through the additional whereases below the last legal description, what it talks about is the different statutory sections that are applicable here, the ones that are most important, that authorize you to assign each adjoining landowner an equal share or part of a partition fence. And then once you do that, as a part of this order is permanent. And you can be drawn into additional things as fence viewers on that property. The hope is you would not be. Because one of the things the parties have to do, you'll see in the order at some point here, it says they have to maintain it. They have to follow through on what's determined by your final order. So as you get into the series of paragraphs numbered 1 through 6, that's what kind of the meat of the decision is, if you will. It identifies parcel A and parcel B. Parcel A is the applicant. That is the first party, the Hopkins landowners that are identified in the card and the application, and attached to it, of course, as I said earlier, you'll see the application itself from both. Well, you'll see the applicant's document and you'll see the adjoining landowners document, both of which were placed on forms that we provide as a courtesy, so people will get us the information they need to conduct the fence view. But when you get down into here, it's talking about what your findings are going to be. It points out in that third whereas that it's clear the parties disagree with themselves, between themselves, which is not unusual, about the need for a partition fence. Here you have the unique circumstance of that electrified fence being put up, basically completed, according to the adjoining landowner, the day before the fence view, on their side, on their property. So that is still, nothing in this order is going to determine whether that is a legitimate or partition fence. I'm just going to clarify how that's being treated in the draft that I provided for you. As we move down the draft order, it talks about the total construction cost of that fence that was provided by documentation that's attached to the applicant's form that's part of the packet. And that total cost is identified in here. Of that fence was, I believe, had to be $13,000 and change, because the statute, if the party making the application constructed the fence on their own, and there it is a legitimate partition fence, then normally what you do is you divide the cost between the adjoining landowners. And that's why this provides for an order. Sure. Thank you. I knew it was something. Thanks, Rich. That is the total in paragraph 4 that was submitted with documents to show the amount of the cost of the entire length of the fence. And this order provides that it's divided between the parties, half. It's already been paid for according to the applicant. So 1/2 of their cost, they're entitled to reimbursement if you sign the order. And that would be appropriate, in my view, under the way the statutory scheme is set out. Of course, it's always going to be up to you to decide what you want to do. But once the prerequisites are made, or the preconditions made for that assessment and division, the best course of action would be to do it. It doesn't mean, and it's, a lot of times too, what will happen is you expect there will be subsequent conflict between the parties, and then there is none. I have no idea whether, and I'm talking about legal conflict over legal terms, legal rights. That could still happen. But your point of it, again, is not to resolve those contractual disputes. You do not have authority to do that. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. We're trying to.
I don't have a question, but I read through all, and this may not be part of our job, but I read through all these emails. And there's a part that really bothers me about this whole deal is that it seems like the original applicant is using it for profit. And he says so in his emails to Paul, that he lost money and he was putting up the fence for his own personal gain, and that he was advised not to tell the appraiser or the county that he was using that for personal gain. It's in these emails. And so I would I'm leaning toward not splitting the cost. It should, of course, and that has to be determined by our appraiser and the courts, but it just, it raises some real serious questions in my mind as to why the applicant wants to share the cost if they don't want to share the land.
Well, I think you've gone right into an area that you don't have authority and don't have authority to base your decision in this matter. If you create that record, you are asking for an appeal that you are likely to lose after all that work that you've done. And you can certainly, the board can do as it wishes, but I will provide you an order that says whatever you want it to say. But you cannot resolve appraisal issues. You cannot resolve classification issues. None of those things in a fence. That's not for you to do. It's not structured that way. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm not saying it shouldn't make a difference.
I think in this case, how we have it sets it up to where the entities that do have the authority to do that will then be able to do that. And that's out of our purview.
Yeah,
That's the way I understand it.
And that's what I'm saying is, and I'm not trying to muddy the waters here. I'm not saying this solves those issues you're raising. It doesn't even address them. It doesn't mean they can't be addressed in the proper form. So you're not depriving yourselves of anything by staying within those parameters that you have under the statute for your authority.
I have a question. The whole, is there, I don't see anything in there of requirements that be a reasonable, what I'm calling a reasonable fence. I mean, could somebody put up, $100,000, stainless steel, something rather, overdone fence and still have to split the cost? Because this one was, they mentioned it's kind of an overdone thing. I mean, I understand why they did it, but it's.
Well, it has there are minimum requirements, but there isn't any statutory set out maximum. So you could always, I understand what you're saying, if you could accuse someone of overbuilding, if somebody put up a partition fence that included razor wire atop and it looked like it belonged for
6 foot stockade fence with razor wire.
Well, I mean, seriously, I mean, you could, I'm not saying it's something like that if somebody really wanted to be uncooperative, but it's really minimum requirements that are relevant in something like this. And again, if you don't believe that that's the cost or should be the cost, that's arguably still outside your authority, because what it talks about is putting the fence up, and as long as it meets those minimum standards, which there was no argument by the adjoining landowner, it does not.
Right.
And I'm not saying in the right case, you couldn't say, well, it's overbuilt, we're not going to split it. We're not going to divide the cost. But the statute talks about dividing the cost. I'm not saying if two of you feel, because it does have to be, this is not a supermajority requirement. If two of you believe that you want to test the waters and see if in effect you can make it less than a full division, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. I would just tell you are setting yourselves up for an appeal.
Of course, and I don't know what, and maybe, I don't know what it would cost to have a lesser minimum requirements. I don't know enough.
Well, actually, that's the adjoining landowners. That's really kind of that's what the adjoining landowner's position is. But then that ignores the fact, under the factual scenario you see in the emails and the other materials and what they talked about, they've been going back and forth for some time on this, and that's not unusual when you reach this kind of point, if the parties still can't agree.
Well, does the other one I don't know, what are the minimum requirements?
Well, I don't have them. It's set out by statute how many strands of wire.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm guessing it's more than what that.
And it's also, I'm sure it is. I mean, I had my trusty tape measure with me, but I didn't bring it out because it didn't seem like there was going to be any argument. It wasn't a good enough fence. But there are height requirements, strands. I'm getting signals that it's 4 strands.
Yeah, that's what was going through my head, was to ask you, because I know there's a statute that addresses just that. The minimum requirement is for some reason, I believe 4 strand and so such and such height, but there is a statute that addresses the minimum requirement.
Sure, absolutely. And that prevents somebody from saying they got a partition fence and they put 1 strand of barbed wire
Yeah, just put it.
chin high. I mean, who knows? So, but it doesn't, the statute itself really doesn't address an overbuilt fence. In the right circumstance, like I described, an extreme extent. Yeah, I think you
And
can.
I don't know whether it was over, it looked, I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know whether that's overbuilt or not. I don't know.
But I understand your point. I mean, if I'm the other landowner, I would argue though, I'll split the cost of the 4-wire as required by statute.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I could see is, but I don't know unless we have to talk. It's the guy that built the fence that asked him what it'd be to put a
Minimum standard.
minimum standard one. But
But it doesn't, the statute doesn't say that you only have to do the minimum. It does not say that. So again, that just depends on whether, again,
of course, that gets back to all this street and they had tried to negotiate something between them.
they've been going back and forth for some time,
What was needed.
both by what they said and by what, yeah, so. Again, I'm just trying to lay out for you where your authority lies. There's nothing that says, I mean, if you want to give it a shot, if 2 of you want to have that argument, it would be settled potentially in litigation. Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, somebody, we wouldn't be the ones that'd be filing that.
But I don't know, you know, we'd have, to me, you'd have to go back and ask them what, and I'm sure it wouldn't be cheap, just through going through that terrain and cutting down, you know, they had to cut some trees out and everything, clear it to get it in. That it might not be that much different than a minimum. I don't know. That was,
Yeah.
um,
There wasn't information presented on that. So, and not that there should be.
So the statute doesn't say like who it benefits the most. You can break up a percentage on it.
No, you could write one like that if you want, but it isn't part of the existing statutory scheme. Yeah. What you have to have is a fence that divides 2 adjoining parcels used otherwise than in common, which only attorneys could have come up with that phrase. It just means used differently. One, which usually means one's pasture, one's private. Or some other use, but they can't be the same. If you have properties being used the same, then there's no basis for a fence. Not a partition fence. You could have a dispute between the parties over some fence issue, but it wouldn't be
if they were both, even if they were both pasture,
yeah.
they wouldn't have to have a fence.
It says otherwise than in common use. So,
I didn't apply this one. I'm just curious about.
no, I know.
the whole-
And it
the whole
comes up.
system.
It has come up before when people have requested a fence field, but both of them have crops. There's no basis for a fence field. You may have disputes, you may have issues, all kinds related to that fence, but they aren't within the fencing statutes. Thankfully, at least that wasn't an issue here. If you show up for a fence view and both sides have cattle on each side because they want it, the first thing I'll be telling you is, well, we don't have to do a fence view. Both sides had crops and no intention of putting cattle on one, that'd be the other thing. If somebody had plans to do it, that would matter too. They said they can't do it until they got a partition. Just part of the fun of the fence. Like all statutory schemes, it's not going to provide you every single tool you might want, and maybe you ought to. And you get to go convince the legislature to plug those in. Right. Good luck.
Goes way back to the 1800s. The
Old
statute,
statutes.
yeah.
That's one of the things I'm going to plug in is your massive fee of $7 a piece for doing this.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'd invest it if I were you.
Yeah,
Believe me, I will.
Use dollar cost average. Take a few months.
Invested in lunch.
That's an extra $7 ownership of the Atlanta Braves.
So if we did try to go back
Mhm.
and find what cost of a minimum fence would have been and say, well, then try to split that up, we would be writing new.
Well, I wouldn't be writing it. The question would be, are you complying with the statutory?
Yeah.
And I think it's since there isn't anything that talks about, no more than this, it says minimum. The right facts, again, right facts, if you had a gigantic fence, somebody builds the Berlin Wall around their place, I think then you got a legitimate basis for saying, this isn't a partition fence.
But I mean, because this is still just a barbed wire fence. It's a,
It's a very sturdy barbed wire.
But new fences they're not gonna look like the ones that are falling down along
No.
wrong roads.
No. But it was striking, I admit, when you show up, and that's the first thing you think is, that's a real fence.
Yeah.
There's so many episodes of Yellowstone I'm thinking about right now.
it's really hard to see that. To split it 50-50.
Well, if the two of you don't want to, then don't do it. I've told you what, and there's just some risk there of the validity of your decision. And doesn't mean it couldn't be defended. If you're gonna go that route, I'm
Well, but
sure.
then it becomes our issue and it becomes a further taxpayer.
Yeah, then
Taxpayer expense to try to defend, and it's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
How much do we spend then defending our thoughts?
And conceivably, if there is litigation going down the road on these contractual issues, I can't believe
Oh, there
that this would come up as well.
Yeah.
And no court is going to probably have the authority to overturn that in terms of the order would still be out there. It'd still be on the property because that's one of the things filing with the Register of Deeds does, unless the judge were to direct that it be removed from the record or something. But the judge could order, I think, in subsequent litigation that, well, there's going to be some damages awarded here because you shouldn't have had to pay $6,000 or you paid too much or you paid too little. Who knows?
That's between the two parties.
And that's between the two parties and whatever, if there's litigation downrange, whatever fact finding, judge, jury, whatever, that says this is what the percent should have been. And you can also get a direct appeal to the district court under your order in this. It's always possible. So there's some element of unknown here. And I'm not going to pretend I can tell you when I give you a percentage. I think it's pretty risky to make a decision on the facts that you saw to justify something other than dividing it as proposed. Simply because the statute doesn't deal with the question of overbills.
Yeah.
If you want me to bring it back, I'll bring it back. If you want to think about it some more, that's fine with me. It was attached to the application. It's the final attachment.
Well,
I didn't count.
It's after
oh, there it is.
D. Yes.
Was it in this stack?
Yeah, I didn't make a copy of it.
It's part of your package.
Next time to assign fence viewers, which I think they can legally do, can they not?
Yeah.
Assign fence, and I think Mr. Fike could be a good fence viewer. He
What's
woke up.
I'm awake. I just wasn't.
He'd be a great.
Yeah,
fence viewer, don't you?
yeah.
You
want me to make it?
You were volunteering.
Let's hope.
We kind of have Gary doing everything else, so yeah, I guess
There's
that's
a Kansas fence law that I'm sure you've already discussed.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's kind of involved in this,
just a little bit.
more than one, but a series. It happens.
Yeah.
And it answers all questions until you try to apply it to the facts and give the fence. Where you come.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. 18.
And you know what the best part about it is? For a grand total of $7.
So when was it? 1890?
Yeah, when I took it.
The Kansas fence law you're talking about. Yeah. Three wires, three barbed wires is a legal fence, right?
What is it?
Three barbed wires.
Is it three? I was thinking four, but you're probably right.
Three.
So what do we have out
Yeah,
there? I don't remember.
4 or 5.
I think it was a 5 wire.
Yeah, I think it was
I
5.
believe the lady commented that that's really a fence that's built for buffalo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Buffalo fence.
Most are at least 4 or 5 and some are 6, but buffalo fences are at least 6, I think.
It was a heck of a fence.
It was, yeah, and the posts were heavy metal. You know.
Yeah, but yeah.
And I think if a buffalo wants to go through it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they're in a
The
herd
right
and they're
time of
running.
the year, you're.
Yeah, it's not gonna matter.
Because that's what, I mean, the materials, I mean, they were even if those were overdone, but that the biggest part was just install. I don't know that you could.
Well, I noticed.
I'm not sure how much cheaper it could have been.
Well, I
That's what
noticed
I'm
that.
looking at.
I'm not cheerleading for a particular result. I'm telling you, that's the exact same thing I looked at when I looked at the totals. It's the biggest shares of labor,
Yeah,
which is not that surprising.
but I'm just saying, if you did it less, do a little bit less on a little less materials there, might save some, but it's not gonna save a lot of it.
From the one picture, it looks like it's a 5 wire.
And it also, the draft order, as I said, I don't want to get too focused on cost alone. Cost is important. Part of what your decision needs to be, but also the maintenance. responsibility.
Yeah,
And I simply divided and described half of it.
Yeah.
So.
it's up to the corner. One has.
From the road,
south,
from Indian
and
Hills Road
west.
to the applicant, from Indian Hills Road up to the midpoint, I figured that was going to be enough based on what we saw to encompass the gates. At least the gate we were looking at. I don't know if there was another one further north. I don't think so.
I don't think he said.
But
The midpoint.
I would think midpoint of the entire length, because it runs north, it runs from the way I looked at it, runs south, north from Indian Hills Road, then it turns east and goes over to the existing fence that was not part of the construction.
Isn't about even, I thought, wouldn't the midpoint be the corner? Or is it not?
No, I don't,
I
you
thought
can't
it
count
was
on
square.
that. And we didn't have any measurements. Nobody submitted that. That's why in past fence view orders, what I generally said, unless we have measurements, is midpoint. And then if they want to argue about it, then they can fight between themselves about that. And I'm not saying that lightly. That was not established. And normally, if it were easy to do at that location, I would have suggested we do it. It would not have been easy to do. But it's easy enough to say it's at the midpoint. You get the north half, you get the south half. The nice thing is, no matter what you decide, you're going to have criticism. That's the result. Like any good board decision.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have everyone lining up and telling what a great job it's done. Just remember the $7. Getting into
No, it should be
Gary's.
good. Well, I'm just looking at the description, the legal description. It's pretty well square. It's 1320 one direction, 1327 the other direction. So midpoint is basically gonna be that corner.
Is it? Okay. And and that's good. I was just shooting to make sure that gate was included in the maintenance responsibility of the applicant, since the applicant put the fence up. And there were questions about access through the gate.
Yeah, but I thought.
With that access,
I thought the applicant was gonna have the north-south piece.
I'm sorry,
The applicant has the north-south piece.
half of the entire length. And you're saying that halfway point is at that corner.
Yeah,
That would encompass that gate that you saw.
no, the gate's on the east-west portion.
Was it?
Yeah.
I did not remember that.
Mhm.
Excellent. We were standing up there, we had to go down into the creek, went down to the creek to go to that corner.
We were facing the gate, we were facing north from the side we were on.
Okay, now I got turned around.
Okay.
All right.
Like I say, it might be a few feet off of the corner, but it's not, so the gate is gonna be on the.
Okay,
on
fair
the
enough.
other-
Well, I can alter it so it says to the corner where it turns, which direction? Give me the direction.
Where it turns east.
Turn
North,
east.
south.
Okay, I had that part right.
North, south,
I just was
west,
visualizing the
west,
gate.
the other.
I was visualizing the gate being in that north-south westernmost part of it.
Oh, no, it's
Okay,
in the east-west.
all right.
direction. Like I say, on the legal description shows within, 7 feet difference each direction.
So do you want it divided? And I was just guessing you would want it divided half and half to include the
Yeah,
applicant having
calling-
responsibility for the gate. Is that what you want?
Just saying,
Because it's different from what I've got in here. So you want me to we can say it goes to the corner post, turning east. And then that part that is turning east, that's the part that the applicant's gonna have. Right? That would be the maintenance responsibility. The part running east and west.
so with the gate, so the gate would be in the applicant's.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Right, and the
Yeah.
north-south
Yeah.
would be in the other.
Yeah.
With the other.
And there were differences, obvious differences. I mean, you saw the terrain on the southernmost part too. So,
That's you putting the gate into the. Yeah, that's.
that was what I assumed you would want.
So. Yeah, because that'd be kind of reverse what you have now.
That's right. That's why I'm trying to confirm. I'm gonna change that. If that's what you want. If two of you want that, that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it needs to be correct.
Yeah.
Well, correct. Either way is correct. I would caution you. I want to do what you want. So.
Yeah, the gate should be the responsibility of the applicant.
Yeah.
In that case.
So like I said, the applicant will have the east-west and the other one will have the north-south
Gotcha.
to that corner.
I apologize for getting that. Well, that's why one of the reasons I wanted to bring something that's back to you, because clearly I got turned around which direction we were going to take. Once we got inside. the
so
property.
outside of that, we're okay then with the split.
Yeah. Hesitantly, but I don't think.
You don't want to do that.
And they're like, I'm not going to put hesitantly in the order.
Oh, yeah, well,
Don't-
hesitantly approved.
Yeah. I think there you are asking for it.
Yes.
So
We think this might be okay. We write that in.
Sure. Give it a shot. You want to, instead of an order, you want it to be just kind of a suggestion.
Suggestion, yeah.
Just that they split it.
Okay. All right. I'll bring that back with that change to the maintenance responsibility and make sure it includes the applicant taking that half that I'll describe it that way. That half that includes that runs east and west, it includes the gate.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm glad you saw that difference. Again, that's why I bring stuff to you to review. I want to make sure you have as many eyes as possible. So thank you very much. All right. You'll see it next Thursday.
Do we need to make a motion?
You can make a motion to table it till next Thursday for revision. I've actually got one option down there is not to approve it today. It's however you want to do it.
Well, it says you're going to present an original of the attached with the following changes as suggested here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I'll go ahead and move that the board authorize council to present an original of the attached with the following changes as discussed today's meeting to the BOCC for signature at the next available public meeting.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to was that?
Do what he just said.
Do what it is. As presented here, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and I will have that on a business meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attention.
Time for Mr. Pike, commissioners.
You can add time on to Gary's because
I'm
he lost 8 minutes.
a little surprised there's not a larger crowd here.
There was,
I know.
they all left.
It's way down there, Clancy.
It's got to be.
Yeah, your package.
The packet was 120 pages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
182 is the page for it.
given what I was provided.
181, actually.
Folks, that he said in his.
You're there.
Because he provided these for all of us. I was trying to answer. He said. You want to tell his story?
Yeah.
I missed that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Sorry, I got into your time.
That's all right. It's all right.
For that comment.
Always willing to yield to Counselor Holman, so.
Lots of money.
Sounds like a bunch of baloney to me.
Good morning, commissioners. It sounds like you've had a busy day today as usual. I just want to give you an update on the county fair with a few figures. We had a very successful fair this year, despite the heat, 107, 104, 106. We did have some cloud cover and storm Friday night, and so there were some of those things in the debacle that happened Sunday night, which we're still trying to resolve a little bit of that in terms of security. And then I'll give you a little task force update and something else with the fair that I'll actually tack on to the end of my report. So our 4-H exhibit numbers, and I did bring for each one of you, and you can just pass them down if you would, Commissioner Ford, a copy of what we call our ribbon count, which includes every exhibit that's shown at the county fair. So this year we were up slightly over last year, 4.3%. We had almost 2,100 separate ribbon placings. That includes the horse show, which is held the Saturday before. And it's interesting to watch the flex, and you can look at that Excel spreadsheet that you have in front of you that shows you the ups and downs and the numbers of projects. So, the people who believe 4-H to be, as we used to say, cows, sows, and plows is more than that now. Particularly photography, visual arts, foods, those kinds of projects, which were up sharply this year. Visual arts was up 13%, photography up 18%, and foods was up 19%, and poultry was up 65%. We saw a fractional decline in other livestock projects. Part of the problem with that is, and it's not really a problem, but the initial cost of a livestock project, particularly cattle anymore, if you follow that market, a regular feeder calf is anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000. And time you stick $700, $800, $900 worth of feed in it, you got to have quite a bit of money back. But the kids that exhibit market livestock can go through the sale, which was another big success this year. We had, and I know some of you in here have supported that, we had over $90,000 in premiums at the sale this year, which was up $15,000 over last year, which was fantastic. And I don't know what all the kids do with their money. But in our case, our kids, all that money all went towards college savings plans, and it helped tremendously. Of course, there's a little bit of economics that doesn't make sense, is that mom and dad actually own the cows and the calves and pay for the feed, and then the kid gets all the money. And there's something that's not right about that. But anyway, that's the way that works.
Well, you taught them well. They're smarter than you.
They're smarter than me. Yes. So anyway, it was great. It was a great sale, great livestock sale. The carnival itself, despite the 2 or 3 hour shutdown during Friday night storm, still grossed over $120,000, which was nearly as much as last year. And of that amount, 26,000 plus went to 4-H 4-H scholarships for our program. So it was really, really good from that standpoint. I haven't heard on the rodeo attendance, but military appreciation night went really well. It started a little slow, and that's always Thursday night where the chamber generously provides free tickets to military members and veterans, I think, and then a supper that evening in the entertainment tent. And so they got chased out of the arena Friday night because of the storm. If you want to come back at 9:30 and watch the rest of the rodeo, and I think they honored the tickets for Saturday night so people could come back. Yeah, really good crowds, very, very well attended. The fair went really well overall. There's just a visual of the ribbon down over the last 10 years or so. Staying pretty steady, but a little bit of growth this year over last. I wanted to say especially thank you to the Parks Department staff. They do a fantastic job, and they work a lot of long hours keeping us going. The vendor area was completely full this year. We had one person back out at the last minute, but we also provided a space to the planning and development group for their battery disposal program. So that was good. We still continue to have problems with parking, despite the best efforts of the Lions Club, who we do give them a stipend for doing that. And that's part of their community service that they do a great job. But about 8:15, they shut down and the lot's full. And then what happens is people keep coming in and pulling in and blocking other people in, and it's kind of a mess. So John Harkness, who is your employee of the month this morning, he had suggested to me, and we didn't get it done because I think we need to go down the right path for this thing, is he talked about using big concrete blocks, the big 4x4s or whatever they are, to set at the end evenly spaced to mark the parking rows. Because every year Pat Murphy, retired extension engineer, comes out and we take a tape measure and spray, excuse me, use a little spray paint, paint some spots, and then use the cones and the flags. And then that's usually about the time that they decide to grade the gravel parking lot, which makes all our spots disappear. So then we have to go out and measure it again. But anyway, talking about putting blocks in there to make about 6 rows on each end, so that makes that a lot easier to mark. It also may slow down. It's a county parking lot, slow down some of the traffic that comes through there with various activities going on with young people and cars and cutting donuts in there. May slow down a little bit of that, but I wanted to, and you don't have to decide that today, but if that's, Fair Board will pay for the cost of that. They're really not that expensive, but wondering if that would be something the commission would consider letting us do. It would improve things a great deal. We had a little bit of a ruckus on Sunday night that you probably have heard about, with some youths that created some problems and had a little bit of an altercation, and RCPD showed up and took care of that. But it was a little disturbing for that to happen. But anyway, it got rectified and that went well. So before I go into a little update on the task force, do you have any questions about the fair?
Can they catch many of those individuals?
Well, I saw 3 of them being carted off. I don't know how many more.
And I was wondering if they got many afterwards.
Yeah.
I think so. Not 100% sure, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Let's hope they be successful in getting a few more.
Yeah. And there were several other site altercations that happened that we won't discuss, but anyway. So we had a task force meeting yesterday. Commissioner McKinley attended, maybe the last one. I'm sorry I didn't get you included on that email, but it did happen at KSU Foundation. And basically the program was Assistant City Manager Wyatt Thompson gave a presentation regarding the history of Seco Park, and you all know that story. And they're talking about improving the ball fields. They've got the money, I guess, to do that. And then the tennis courts and expanding that. And then maybe paving the parking lot west of the city ball fields that would go on to some of the county property. So that's something that's going to need to be discussed in the future. they'll have to visit with you about that, of course. Task force continues to look at alternative locations, including public works. But I think we kind of are taking a little bit different approach because of the cost that we talked about in the past. I think they're thinking of a transitory period running over a period of time. Various components or phases, if you will be done. One of those would be the rodeo arena, maybe, and then followed by this and followed by that, and looking at open-sided barns and not an event center with it's covered and air conditioned and all that kind of stuff. There's still some talk out at Fairmont Park, which we'll discuss a little bit more, but I think that's still a floodplain area, and there's some concerns about that and private property around there. But looking at that, and our next meeting will be September 20th, 7 a.m. And you're invited to come if you'd like, at the KSU Foundation Building, 1800 Kimball Avenue. And there will be breakfast. Greg Lorenz and the foundation provided that for us, and it was very good. I didn't need to eat the rest of the day yesterday. It was really good. So if you'd like to come, just let me know so that we can prepare for the crowd in terms of food and seating. But I think there's also one other thing we had visited about before, that maybe the city would possibly purchase part of the county grounds to provide seed money, and there's resistance to that. Private discussions with them, and that wasn't really discussed at yesterday's meeting, but I'm thinking the city's at this point in time anyway, the indication is they're not interested in buying any of the county property. So just as an FYI.
Others maybe.
Yeah,
Others maybe.
Maybe.
there could be some private companies that would like to.
On the school district.
The
That's what I was
school
thinking.
School district.
I don't think they want to buy it either. They just,
They want it.
They want it.
They
Right?
want
Both want it, they just
free.
don't know who to pay for it. Yeah, I think.
And I get part of the argument there. One taxing entity charging a taxing entity when it's already been bought and purchased once. I get it. But
Well,
Anyway,
it's a valuable piece of property too.
I think GIS values the county property up there a little over $6 million. If you look on GIS, I think that's what the appraised value is.
And there's roughly 2 with the buildings as well.
Okay. There's also discussion of, again, and talked about this with Commissioner McKinley before, and maybe they're all the rest of you, but you know, when they originally built Potter Hall, the intention was for the extension office to go out there, but it wasn't done. And if that were to happen, if a building was built out there at some point in time, that would move out and clear up some more space for other departments here. But that's another discussion down the road. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Mulder, commissioners. Good morning. I will, good morning. We'll echo, I went to all 3 nights of the rodeo and loved it. It was great. Even stuck out the weather one on Friday night. It was great to be able to come back and see it. So love that event. Great opportunity. It's also good to see you guys this morning at the Morning Manhattan event. Really enjoyed that. Really think that the President Linton has the right guy in Marshall there. He's a great guy. I had a great opportunity to talk to him this morning early about some other personal issues. Just really, what a great guy. And also thought, as I was listening to him, it was great timely for today being the BOCC update and listening to him talk about K-State and making K-State, Manhattan, Riley County area a good place for students to come, and it being the chamber, a great place for businesses to come work and people to come work and visit. Timely to give our RCPD monthly update, because I think it's I think RCPD plays an important role in that in a way should be unseen, kind of forgotten about, that it is, the crime is low in Manhattan, which I think then makes businesses want to come to the Manhattan area. Just thinking about that with the chamber, as well as students, parents sending students off to school. So with that, I'll give you your the monthly update. Part one crime. Actually, I have these for you. Sorry about that. Pass those down. I have a few extra. I'm not going to read through all of it. I'll just highlight some of it. Part one crime in July is 1.7% down. That's the overall part one crime from the 5-year average, which is a good thing. Continue to try and reduce. I think it's pointed out where the goal is that this is always zero, but we know that's not going to happen. So that's why our mission is to reduce crime and improve the quality of life of the citizens we serve. So that part one violent crime was 20% below the 5-year average in July, and is expected to be 50% below the average at the end of the year. That means there were 0 robberies, 0 homicides, 14 ag assaults or batteries, which were 5.4% below this time last year, and then 2 rapes. So overall, that's down 20%. Part one property crime, however, was up 20% over the 5-year average. That involves 9 structure burglaries, 8 vehicle burglaries, 8 vehicle thefts, and 77 just other regular thefts. That can be anything from shoplifting to just stealing something from someone's front yard, etc. But I should also point out, I think it's unique this year or this month with the 8 vehicle burglaries. All of those showed no sign of forced entry, which would indicate that they're probably unlocked and people just rifling through an unlocked vehicle. And then vehicle thefts were up 11.1% over the 5-year average. That's 8 vehicle thefts, and we recovered 6 of those. Most of our vehicle thefts in the area have almost always been crimes of opportunity, where someone finds a car that's unlocked or needs a car to get from here to Topeka or here to across town. They jump in a joyride, which is why generally we recover them. Those that we don't tend to then be the ones that were taken a long way away or were chopped up and used elsewhere. I think that low number, the high recovery, indicates they're more one-offs versus a vehicle theft ring, which is going to be the difficult one to get your car back from. Those are usually far more intentional, obviously.
It's up 50% over the highest of the 5-year average already, just for this year.
Yeah, and those are kind of hard to prevent, other than locking up and not leaving it to where your keys are in the vehicle, which a lot of times those joy rides or whatever are the ones that happen. They're crimes of opportunity. DUIs in July were 5% below the average, but projected to be up 18.1% at the end of the year. And that's always a difficult one to say, good, bad, what's that mean? Because you don't know how many intoxicated drivers were missed, so that's not good. Was it because there was a lack of enforcement? So, we can bring that to 0 arrests by just never enforcing or hitting it really hard. It looks like there's a real problem. I think it's always important to point that out. Trying to find that balance is difficult. So you look at that, and I always look at it and go, okay, are we not doing enough, or were they just not? Are we not finding them? Because they're been reduced. Hard to know. Similar, I think, even with traffic accidents. Traffic accidents overall were 2% or 5.2% below the 5-year average. And they're projected, though, to be 4.1% below at the end of the year. However, preventable accidents, those are accidents that where weather doesn't play a part, or, car gear accidents that you really can't prevent. It's usually things that something you've done, and a traffic violation of some sort. Those are 16.5% down in July, but projected to be up 1.7% at the end of the year if we continue at this rate. That's something over the last few months, last year or so, we've noticed it started to climb, and it really started to emphasize our operation, our accident reduction program that we've been really focusing on. And that has been very effective. They've really taken our crime data that's fresh, where accidents are occurring the most. And as you saw, even in a recent post, we're putting officers out of those areas where we're seeing accidents or getting complaints and hitting it hard. And we're seeing an immediate reduction in some of those. A lot of those intersections or locations are also hard places to enforce because it's difficult to sit there and then get into traffic to make the traffic stop. But at a minimum, the presence there helps. A lot of times those are also difficult places to do enforcement.
I'm getting a lot of complaints again out on Wildcat Creek in Eureka in the morning. I almost
The raceway?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just about witnessed an accident Tuesday morning myself there. So I'm just planting a seed.
We get a lot there. You get it out on Knox Lane or Casement, headed out town. You know, any of those remote stretches of road tend to be high raceways.
I think part of it is people. Why? I don't know. People are racing to get to work, but they are
because they didn't plan well and are trying to get through.
Well, I would probably say around 3:30 it happens again on the opposite because they'd rather race.
Now they're even more anxious.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of overall paints a picture of what I was saying is that I think Manhattan continues to be a safe place to live, visit, and work. And I think that goes with that overall picture. We want to continue to try and do that. Have some another community engagement opportunity coming up Friday, which is our cops on rooftops. Basically, it's the cops. We'll be out at Dunkin' Donuts trying to raise money for Special Olympics. So we'll have some of us up there waving to people as they go by to encourage folks to come, but some people down on the ground as they go through the drive-through or come in soliciting donations to Special Olympics. That's always been a pretty successful event there. We appreciate working with us on that.
Might want to get with the slushy place next door and move to that over the summer because I don't think coffee is going to be on people's mind.
But the donuts are.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Which kind of works for us. There's always
we know the cliche.
And last night, I just thought about it. I always give an update on the jail number of corrections officers. I think last time we were here, we talked about we had a batch of 15, but 9 went before captain's interviews. Out of that, we appear to probably only be able to hire 3, maybe 4 due to background checks, that's not passing the muster. And I think that's important to point out in that we're not lowering our standards to fill seats. It's expensive on the one end, but we don't want to hire to get those numbers up. Okay, we got the numbers filled, and then we have problems. And so I think it's important to show that while we had that high number, we are still doing our due diligence to hire quality people that meet our core values, so that we'll have good folks caring for the care and custody of the inmates that we have there. So, wish we could get 15 quality people, which is what we're down. But
speaking of inmates, where are we at on population?
Didn't check today, but yesterday was 127, I believe it is, 131 overall. Some of those, we could get 2 numbers because we have about 5 that are either at Osawatomie or 3 juveniles that are at the juvenile detention center, that they count in our overall numbers. But our average daily population is right about 127, 129 right now. So it continues to be high. Lots of reasons for that. I think we've talked about it before. I think a part of that is the catching up after COVID with trials and getting things scheduled, getting people out. We just have a higher, I think crime is down. I would also say we're making arrests in the right areas, and those folks are spending time in jail. The higher bonds indicate that they're more serious offenses, and we're making those arrests. You have a constant battle of it's happening when we hear about, hey, we've got warrants for this, or we arrested so and so on this serious crime. They're just kind of like, oh, good, but oh no, that means that person's gonna be there a while, so it's, it's there, should be full if we have the crimes that we have occurred. That makes sense. I think I've started to ramble, so I will end unless you guys have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Have a good.
And for Catherine Hensler. Morning, Catherine.
Good morning. How are all of you?
Good.
Good morning, Commissioners. Catherine Hensler, Director of the Raleigh County Historical Museum. Just coming in with our monthly staff report. So we'll start with visitation and tours. In the month of July, there were 150 visitors to the museum, 67 to the Goodnoe House, 20 at the Wolf House Museum, and 20 at the Pioneer Log Cabin. I'm going to start including these charts so you can see month to month what our attendance looks like and how the trends go based upon when school is in, when we're doing field trips, when summer vacation is taking place. So you can see in July we had our lowest numbers of the last 4 months. We do attribute that to summer vacation. However, we will see an uptick in August because of that treasure hunt. And we're actually very grateful it's over. We had a lot of visitors, which was great for us. Unfortunately, there was a lot of disrespect on the site. We had people going through our garden, breaking off vegetables, opening up doors, lifting lids on cisterns, not putting things down. So as great as that was for the community and getting people out, we did spend a lot of time going out and checking with people and just asking, welcoming them, of course, but asking them to be respectful while they're on the sites. So it will help us out with attendance numbers, but we did have some trouble with just movement on the site. In the month of July, volunteer hours for the month, and this is just volunteers without any other orientation, just are strictly general volunteers, 59 hours and 3/4. The Raleigh County Historical Society Board of Directors volunteered 18.5 hours. And again, that is low this month because they're on summer recess. And then our community service volunteer hours were up at 16.5, and that totals almost 100 volunteer hours for the month of July at 94.7. Looking at our education and outreach, on July 11th, the museum staff hosted our monthly fireside chat in collaboration with Flight Crew Coffee. The topic of the discussion was television, the entertainment of the future, and this was presented by Linda Glasgow, who is the museum's curator of library and archives. 31 visitors attended, and we received more positive feedback on this program. This was something that we started the program in April of this year as a partnership with one of the downtown businesses. They offer us the space for free, and we offer the program for free. So far, we have been very pleased with the attendance and the topics and the speakers. We had one in August, which I don't report here because that will come on next month's staff report, but we did trivia of Raleigh County. Our next program will be held on September the 12th, and this topic and speaker are currently being confirmed. We have reached out and asked somebody, but we don't have their confirmation yet. And as always, the chats are designed to engage the audience and memory share. And we hope that these topics will generate meaningful and memorable discussion amongst the presenters and attendees. And like I said earlier, these are always free and open to the public. We are on K-Man monthly. We're always on the third Monday of each month. And on July 17th, the segment was presented by curator Melanie Highsmith. And the topic was centered around the new temporary exhibit that was recently opened at the museum, dealing with the medical pioneers of Raleigh County. I'll just jump right into that new exhibit. It's called Phases of Innovation, Medical Pioneers of Raleigh County. It is now open at the museum, and as all of our exhibits at the museum, they are always open to the public and free of admission. In the month of July, curator Highsmith also installed a small promotionary exhibit at the county courthouse, and it is also on the medical pioneers of Raleigh County. It's being used as a way to just a little bit of a teaser. People will get to see some of the artifacts, little snippets of content from that main exhibit, and then we include the marketing component of encouraging people to come out to the museum to see the full exhibit. We also continue to work with Dr. Lauren Ritterbush on the Indigenous Peoples Panel update at the museum. This is for the exhibit Land and the People, which is the permanent exhibit. We hope to have this fully completed by September 1st. And these updates include and replace some of the very old and outdated texts and artifacts that we had on exhibit at the museum. We're very pleased to be able to do this simply because it was time for an update. We want to make sure that all the information that we present is clear, accurate, respectful, and academic. And we wish to publicly thank Dr. Ritterbush for the amount of time and careful commitment that she has put into helping us with these panels. Curator Highsmith also provided a presentation of the Riley County Genealogical Society on July 23rd. This is free and open to the public as well, and it dealt with the Yuma Street Historic District. There were 20 people in attendance at that event. We'll jump into our collections department. In the month of July, there were, and I'll preface this like I do every month. When I say there were 10 donations, that means 10 individual donors provided donations to the museum. Amongst those donations, there were 67 individual items that were recorded for acquisition. Those are 67 items that we chose to keep. That does not count anything that we turned away or gave back to the donor. Curator Munger was also able to process 4 backlog collections, which totaled 39 individual items, which were acquisitions into the permanent collection. And again, I've just included a chart here so you can see how items are coming in, number of donations, number of items being recorded each month. On July 19th, the Historical Society's Collection Committee met to review some random items for deaccession and accession into the museum. One of the things, they don't normally point out items that we keep or items that we deny, but I wanted to talk about one grouping of items. We had a collection that was donated in 1967, and it included some very important artifacts, but along with those came 3 display cases. They are not historic, they are not current museum standards, they no longer meet the needs, and we decided that the artifacts were no longer safe in there. So our process was to present this to the collections committee for deaccession. The committee agrees with us and that we do not need those cases. The challenge is those cases were added to the permanent collection. So they were accessioned in 1967. Not uncommon for our museum, but it does include some additional administrative and decisions and signatures and things of those nature. We have to follow the official process of deaccession to get rid of anything that is in the collection. And so we, of course, have to do our research on that. And we go back to the original deed of gift. And unfortunately for our museum staff, in that deed of gift, it said this collection is never to be separated. So what we have to do in a situation like that, and that should have never been signed, but no one from 1967 is still here to have that conversation with us. So what we're doing right now is going through additional research. We do need to track down the descendants of that donor to ask them if they would be willing to amend that contract and if they would like the cases back. So that'll be our first step. And from there, we will certainly report back. We hope to be able to deaccession simply because this is just part of the process we need to do in order to clean out that museum. There are a lot of items like this. And again, the reason I bring this up is just so we can explain the time-consuming process of removing 3 non-historic items from the museum's collection that never should have been in the collection. This is one of probably 200 we have that we know we're going to have to get to ultimately. So I will follow up with that just so you so we all have some closure. But I just bring that up to explain these are the things we deal with, and we do follow our collections management policy for this type of thing. However, and I will note, just because this is kind of funny, we have a live tree that's been put into our collection. And that should never happen. So we're running into things like that every day where we know we have to follow this process with things that just don't belong in the collection. So we are working on that now. And our goal, though, is always to meet our mission and to make sure that everything we do is adhering to our ethical museum collection standards. So now talking about archives and library, our curator Glasgow managed 4 incoming patron requests for the public and 2 internal. In the month of July, there were 6 appointments made to use the research library and 6 walk-in patrons. And then she continues to follow up with outstanding requests submitted previously. Again, this is just now a 4-month overview of the number of requests coming in. And like I said earlier, Curator Glasgow provided the presentation for our July fireside chat on July 11th about the history of television. Moving on to building and grounds, we are cleaning out more sections of the museum storage area. Currently, we're focusing on the temporary storage on site, and then the Historical Society has some off-site storage units. We are working to get those cleaned out as well. And then between county park staff and our community service workers, they have been keeping our museum site and the Goodnoe grounds looking wonderful this summer. So I did want to thank them publicly for their efforts. We really do appreciate it. And then surprisingly and amazingly, no major issues of note concerning our building maintenance and the grounds. Looking at special projects, I did want to report that the historic Goodnoe Interpretive Garden is growing very well, and we have just started harvesting. At the time of this report being submitted, we were only bringing in melons, and now we're getting tomatoes and pumpkins. So if you want any produce, come and see us. We're probably going to have an abundance in a couple of weeks. I do want to report that we're still short on volunteers for this project, and we are continuously trying to recruit more. So if you know anybody that has an interest in gardening and a historical interpretation, we would love to have that conversation with them. And currently, our staff members, Hi Smith and Derek Doty, are working on an interpretive brochure to accompany that garden, which will tell a brief history of the Goodnoe family, the site, as well as the reasons we chose to install this garden and maintain it. And then one of the things that we constantly get as a question from visitors is, what kind of vegetables are you growing? So we have created a key and it's in a brochure form. So we can just hand that out to visitors and they'll get that information they need, whether we can have a tour guide accompany them or not. Staffing at the museum, I'm very happy to report, is full, and that came with the most recent hiring of our as-needed museum assistant, Heather Bigwood. Heather is a student at K-State, and she's majoring in history, and she is also an expert in historic costumes, textiles, and interpretation. We're very excited to have her join our team, so welcome, Heather. The Riley County Historical Society is still currently on recess for the summer, and they'll resume their monthly meetings in September, and they always meet the second Wednesday of every month. I'm very excited to announce, because I've been talking about this in front of the commission for a while, with the society, they have finally approved and launched their new logo, their branding package, and their new website. So that is available to view at your leisure. The website is here, rileychs.org. And we welcome any feedback from either you, from the society, from visitors, from the general public. It was a soft launch, so we really are testing things right now, making sure that deliverables are being met and statistics are being reported correctly. And then once we get that completed, we will be working with Vivian to make sure that the museum's website and the society's website are both complementary of each other and share the same information. And then many preservation projects are taking place at the Historical Society properties this summer, and I do want to make sure that we note that these are the privately owned Historical Societies properties and not county property. The big one is the Wolf Photography Studio, and it did just finally have its doors and windows restored, and that project is complete and it looks great. There are some other major projects going on with both that property and some of the others, including masonry, roof replacement, repainting, etc. I'll jump over some of these things because we are about out of time, but some important upcoming events. We have one this weekend. It is the Genealogy and History Fair. It's on Saturday from 10 until 4 at Potterov Hall. There's about 30 vendors coming out dealing with both of those topics, and this is free and open to the public, and there will be a food truck. And then, of course, we've got our upcoming fireside chats, our speaker series with Ron Wilson. and the Rocky Ford Schoolhouse Ice Cream Social and Open House on October 1st. I won't mention those others because we've got some more time, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions that commissioners might have. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Next, Commissioner Stein. Yes,
You want to take a break?
take a break. Okay,
Yeah.
just a second. Julie.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I am. I was gonna bring it to you when it was a break. Great. I just went through it. It's all signed, except for you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
You need to get some color ink in the printer. We need to make a motion. We move to recess as the Board of County Commission and reconvene as the Board of County Health.
I'll second.
We moved and seconded to recess as the Board of County Commission and convene as the Board of County Health. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, good morning, commissioners. Julie Gibbs with the Health Department. This is my monthly update reflecting back on the month of July. Shelley's provided the budget to actual for you. Nothing out of the ordinary. It usually looks about like this time of year. Any questions on the budget? Move on to program updates. And I do have Skylar German with us here today. She is our PHEP coordinator, Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, and she is going to give you a little detailed information about what she's been doing and upcoming events that she has coming up. So I'll kind of fly through mine so I can allow some time for her to present. As far as an MCH update, the Maternal and Child Health Program held all 6 Becoming a Mom classes on Thursdays in the month of July with a total of 71 class participants. They had 8 Spanish-speaking participants.
The MCH program is working on the Kansas Perinatal Community Collaborative Health Equity Opportunity Project, that's a mouthful, which was awarded to them in April. The grant period will begin on July 1, or did begin on July 1 of this year, and it ends on June 30th of next year. MCH staff are working on the beginning phase of the project and hopes to implement this at the beginning of October. The project will specifically focus on behavioral health, prenatal postpartum education, and increased access to fitness classes, which focuses on the overall well-being of clients to support a healthy lifestyle for at-risk women. So the MCH program will offer weekly yoga classes taught by a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor at no cost to the community to educate, support, and improve physical, mental, and overall well-being for the community and perinatal clients served through MCH services. Additionally, in July, the Safe Kids Coalition Coordinator, Sarah Haybarger, and MCH Supervisor